Some of the other stuff that pays for like the summer internships are super like good. Like I want that.
Was it a bad dream?
It was.
It was a bad dream.
I turned it on.
It didn't happen?
I turned it
Oh, that
on with
game
5
was
minutes to go.
So
It was your fault.
What was, no, they were already,
They were
they've already gone a few minutes without.
So, John, as bad as the game was, it was even worse for Charlotte and Tom, because 2 rows ahead of us was the Rutgers fan. It was pretty boisterous, understandable, but every time they scored in the second half, he stood up cheering, and his pants were halfway down. So we were getting that after every, it was like, it was awful.
Just pull your pants down.
It was true, yeah.
Oh, that is.
It was really good.
We had a couple of Rutgers fans in front of us too, and they were really quiet for a long time.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I don't know. I would have let Lundy keep shooting. He's the most efficient shooter in the team. So.
I mean, yeah. I mean,
Tip your cap and
they
move
wouldn't
on.
let Pickett shoot.
I know.
All Lundy has to do is hit one shot.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
over.
Yeah.
Just one shot.
Just one.
Although we're really
Look at this screen on the.
Well, you're asking.
Is that on?
Like someone like that will have house like
It's not there.
I don't know.
I think it's on the board.
Oh, there we go.
Why there are no
That worked my way.
All right, there we go.
Maybe zero.
All right, happy.
10:15.
Yeah, we can get started. Yeah. Happy Monday, everyone. Welcome into this week's Ken Reeves Memorial Weather Briefing. I'm really excited to have Greg DeVoir here today, lead meteorologist from NWS State College. So thank you, Greg, for being here. Really appreciate it. And looks like we finally have some decent weather to talk about. So I'll let you take it away.
Sure. Thanks for having me. Like I said, like a week or 2 ago, I wasn't so sure we'd have that much winter weather to talk about. So I kind of started looking at teleconnections and hopefully had some wisdom to glean. But now it fits in pretty well with the weather pattern this week. Storm chances tonight, mixed precip, another storm chance, looks mixed late in the week. So I started thinking about how much the run-to-run models were changing and what that means. What kind of information can you glean from that? Why is that happening? Well, we're battling right now with multiple signals. Of course, the NAO is the one that we like to see negative, locking in cold air, but we have the PNA and the Arctic Oscillation also at the same time to talk about. And they kind of, I don't know, they sort of stack the deck behind the scenes of the models when you're looking at them. So you either have some confidence that maybe the extended guidance can be correct or not. So I've been looking at this for the last week or so, and just look forward here. So obviously the NAO, we like the blocking pattern in the northern Atlantic. It locks in troughiness and cold air along the east coast, storms. So you think negative NAO, bingo. The models and the ensembles have been showing this trend towards negative NAO, which we hadn't really seen since December. Cold, snowy, sleety actually. But that's our last real extended period of winter weather. And sure enough, we're going negative and forecast to be negative. So it'll be wintry, right? Well, not so fast. Looking at the PNA pattern, which can either accentuate the negative NAO or maybe detract from it. Right now, if we were in a positive phase, we'd really be cooking. But unfortunately, it's not positive. The negative phase tends to reinforce troughiness, storm track into the northwest and western hemisphere, and punching up high pressure along the east coast and intrusions of warm air patterns. So that's basically what we're seeing right now in the PNA index. It's negative, and it's been forecast to be negative for quite some time. So you got the NAO counteracting with the PNA being negative, and then at the same time, you know what? I think I lost my Arctic Oscillation. The Arctic Oscillation is actually also negative, which basically means Arctic intrusions are more possible. With a positive Arctic Oscillation, there's greater flow around the poles, keeping that cold air locked up north. But we're negative Arctic Arctic oscillation right now, which means you can get colder Arctic air masses coming into the CONUS. So you think with those three things acting against one another, you can get some great extremes and volatility. Maybe you're 70 degrees one day and 35 the next. Maybe you're up by 19 in the second half and you lose by 3. Was that, oops, too soon. So anyway, we might want to fill in Shrewsbury on that one. But so that's just kind of a background to why things are so, right now, I think, difficult in the modeling world and the extremes that we're seeing. Did we have blocking last week, and do we have blocking? Yes, it's kind of far away. When it was 70 here, it was 30 in Albany and with freezing drizzle. And I got to gloat with one of my former colleagues up there. And the next day was 35. And obviously today, we've had this system produce quite a bit of severe weather. I forget the town in Texas had 114-mile-an-hour gusts, and there were several tornadoes yesterday. So this system moving off to the east is presenting our next forecast challenge. And for winter lovers, there's really not a strong high to lock the cold air in or keep supplying it, but there is a good ageostrophic flow, which means we will have enough cold air to make it messy. And you can see off to the west and northwest, a typical negative PNA pattern with really good troughiness and storm track over the west. And that's going to be the predominant feature for the next week or two. And so looking at the composite real color imagery, you can see the clouds starting to increase here. We had a nice sunny morning, but the mid to high clouds are starting to increase. And precip will eventually break out later today and tonight. So what form will it take? Well, right now there's a lot of warm air out to our west. Where it was and has been cold and where they've had a lot of snow, it's moderated quite a bit. Surface temperatures are well above freezing out into the middle Mississippi River Valley, and that is headed our way, but it is running into some blocking. So there will be a battleground, and it looks like it's going to stay pretty much overhead for us for the duration of this event. North of the stationary front, dew points are in the 20s, and it does moderate to the south of that with dew points in the 30s, but this will lift up and over us for the duration of this event. And P-type will be obviously the big concern for the near term. Taking a look at some height anomalies over the northern hemisphere, you can see that blocking in the northern Atlantic. So we know why the NAO is negative right now. And you can also see the PNA is negative too, with systems diving into the Pacific Northwest. And that's a pretty pronounced feature. Ridge well offshore, trough coming in. Really for good phasing along the East Coast, you typically want to see positive PNA, ridge, that's a classic Paul Knight rule of thumb or John Deese rule of thumb over Idaho, where I used to work. That's not happening. So we have these successive ridges successive disturbances moving out and ejecting off to the northeast. This is one for later this week, but you can see it weakens as it does so, losing its strength. And the blocking is also kind of weakening as well. Still present, but further offshore. And then once again, just parade of systems into the northwest. So the upper level pattern is not conducive to deep East Coast cyclogenesis in the way that we would lock in cold air and get the snow that a lot of us like. Heading on to the future, things get pretty muddled on the right, lots of spaghetti. Don't need to hang your hat on anything, but in time, it does look like maybe an Arctic air mass does head back into the area by the second week of March, maybe at the end of spring break, but we'll see about that. So just looking at the four or six panel charts from the GFS, we're looking at today's system. Not too far away from being a favorable 500 millibar track for lows to produce snow, but we just don't have the entrenchment of cold air to keep it snow. The high pressure itself is fairly weak. I think it was only 1019 on that analysis. So you're not able to replenish the low level cold air enough to keep it from mixing over. And I'll show you in a second, there's a warm layer, especially pronounced on the NAM, that will largely determine sleet versus snow for us. But moving on through time, this is through Monday into Tuesday. The trough moves overhead, and then we've got broad southwest flow behind it with yet another Pacific system setting its sights on the area for late this week. And this is into Friday and Saturday. Again, not a very favorable upper level height pattern to cause this to slow down, become positively tilted. Secondary development is too late to really throw a substantial amount of snow back in the area. It does get cold behind it though. So I was looking at this additional trailing shortwave for the weekend. Once the cold air moves in, there's kind of an elongated, I don't know if it's a Norland trough or whatever, an axis of instability behind it that would keep it snowing lightly into Pennsylvania this weekend. So for snow lovers who don't want to see the ice and rain from late this week, there's that possibility. But then look at all this zonal flow and the negative PNA pattern favoring storm track into the northwest again. And then heading on through time into fantasy land. So just taking a look, obviously precip type is the biggest question. I just want to show you, you may have seen this before, but we come in, we get some light overrunning snow, sleet. There are a couple periods of heavier bursts of precip. There's a departing right entrance region and an arriving left entrance region later this evening, which may change the mix over to a period of snow. You can't really see too much in the GFS, but the NAM 3 kilometer, I think, is showing a little better. So we have this initial snow sleet, and then this burst that may change things back over to snow for a little bit, but overall for State College, we're mixed and we're not going to accumulate much in the way of snow. But we will have sleet and there will be some patchy freezing rain, it appears, as well. What I did want to show is at this time the warm nose. That models have varying degrees of success at identifying. The 3 kilometer NAM wasn't quite as robust with it, but you can see this well above freezing at about, 7,000 to 8,000 feet. So obviously we're gonna be dealing with that. The other models have varying degrees of success with that. The HER showed mainly an isothermal, like just below freezing, which would suggest snow, but we don't believe that. GFS was not, lower resolution, still showing the warm nose, and a little bit deeper, just not quite the resolution, but it does appear that sleet is going to be the predominant precip type, certainly mixed with snow, and then certainly mixed with some kind of a glaze of freezing rain, it appears. What we like to do, and what was really successful with the storm in December, was the mean href p-types really nailed a lot of the transition times. And if you're confident with the mass fields and things like that, you can trust it. But so just looking through the href at time, high resolution, you can see the precip arrives. It's at a warm time of day, obviously. So in the beginning, it's light, it's mixed, but snow, sleet, some freezing rain. And then here's that burst. It appears coincident with the arrival of the left exit region this evening. This is 3Z tonight, so 9, 10, 11 p.m. There could be a burst of snow. Keep your fingers crossed if you want that. Late this evening as that occurs, better vertical motion and just going more isothermal, perhaps mixing out that warm nose. But then after that, by 6Z tonight, the precip is winding down and we're getting much warmer and not much after that. And as far as convective rates, it does appear that the precip is intensifying as it moves off to our east, but there is that period of time late this evening where we could see a little burst of snow, probably mixed with sleet at that time too. So in ensemble land, this is the new MDL ensemble page, which the 0Z run was available, but it's going to be down for maintenance throughout the day today. You can see from the ensemble land, snow and sleet. Snow is actually the lesser probable precip type. Freezing rain and sleet, not a whole lot of it, but 40% is about the max probability of that p-type. So we're going to see a mix, and it can vary based on rate, obviously. And then beyond 6Z tonight, when things are shutting down, the p-type is rain. We've warmed up substantially. And then looking ahead towards the end of the week, obviously, a lot of timing differences and another mix, depending upon the battle of those indices that we looked at. But the NAO is still present but weakening, but the PNA seems to be the dominant pattern at this point, with the western ridge too far west and amplification occurring to push warm air into our area and produce the mix. So the 8 to 14 day outlook continues to favor below normal temperatures out west. This is where the storm track is. There is some indication that perhaps the NAO will lock in some colder air and even drier with the storm track diving farther south. It was kind of interesting to look at later this week. Beyond this late week system, there's another system for, I think it was Sunday or Monday, and comes out into the plains and then it does a right turn down to the Carolinas. How often do you see that? Not very often. But the pattern is retrograding a bit, so the blocking seems to be returning, and there's a possibility that occurs when we get into some colder, drier air as that pattern evolves. So as far as our forecast from the State College Weather Office, these are advisories. Amounts really don't favor warning criteria at this point in any area, even freezing rain, but it does look like a good part of the area is going to see at least some snow or sleet. The best chance for anything over 2 or 3 inches is across the far northeast, where it stays predominantly snow. It's not too far away that the cold air stays pretty entrenched. And icing, a little bit of a glaze, won't affect too many people on top of the snow or sleet, but PennDOT really has a problem with any amount of icing. And you can take a look at these probabilistic snowfall forecasts, across the Commonwealth. We're basically looking at 4 to 8 inches across the Pocono Plateau. And locally, I would be surprised if we saw more than an inch, to be honest. I think some of this may be inflated due to sleet. We may end up with more sleet, which would compact this a bit more. So from a weather-wise standpoint, that's about it. Maybe we should maybe clue in Shrewsbury to these indices, and maybe they can play better on Wednesday night. John, I'll let you do that diplomatically, of course. That's all I have. Fairly quick, but we can look at more things. Sure.
Could you go back to the ensemble page?
Sure.
I'm probably a year behind here, but it's that one.
This one?
This is publicly available?
I have to use my login to do that.
I don't think it's publicly available.
Not quite. It probably doesn't have the bandwidth. It's pretty slick though. I mean, we can go through and look at 850 temperatures, all these different fields available in kind of a plume mode. Precipitation type PW Cape.
Is anyone in the room aware that this is publicly available?
That was gonna be my question too, but I was like, that'd be really nice to use.
I'll find out when that'll be available and let you know.
Well, just give us the login.
Yeah. I'll give you my Joe.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm
No,
sure
so
that-
if you could find out if it's not publicly available, when will it be publicly available?
Yeah, it greatly facilitates the visualization.
Oh,
of this.
yeah.
Really cool. So yeah, these are the tougher events. We tend to be in the transition zone here in the Mid-Atlantic. We're always in the phasing portion. That storm in December challenged folks to the Northeast because there was more mixing than any of those Northeast offices thought. And they talked about how difficult it is to forecast weather up there. And we actually have with the Sue in Albany, as Mike Evans used to be a lead in State College. And he said, actually, this part of the country for winter weather can be the most challenging because we're usually dealing with some kind of a precipitation change, phase change here. So,
Have you paid, I have, because I have not, have you paid attention this particular winter, since we've had so many of these mixed precip events, which models seem to be handling it better versus which ones we should just disregard?
it's tough. I mean, we're always looking for the warm layer, and I've been burned a couple times by thinking, oh, that model's handling it better. The ATREF did remarkable in the December storm. So much so that like, I was going to Target that morning, and we expected the snow to change over from sleet, freezing rain. It was weird. We started out as mixed of snow in that event. And so the dendrites started coming down at exactly where the HRF had shown it to be occurring. And, sometimes that can be good. That's one of the reasons why I kind of wanted to show the HRF today. It kind of looks like that. We're going to start out with this mix, then go to snow, sleet, and then hang on mostly sleet for a while. But the HRF mean P-type kind of seems to filter out the noise, and it's certainly a go-to for when we're briefing our partners to try to give PennDOT an idea, because obviously depending on which model you look at, how deep that warm nose is, you're going to get a different solution. So they need something to hang their hats on. But.
Thank you.
Do they teach much in the way of teleconnections? Back in the old days, we didn't. We just had some Unix systems that were starting to show things in color and all that model. The extended forecasters at WPC, formerly NCEP, would be their extended prognostic discussions were all about teleconnections. And it can really give you an idea of whether, say, the day 5 storm has a chance to do what that 6Z run said, or the hobbyist on Facebook just put out the 7-day snowfall forecast. So don't do that. Don't be that person.
Well, if you're asking, I mean, the teleconnections get mentioned in my classes all the time.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
But the NAO's been positive for so long that it's almost a lost cause at this point.
It has been, and my fear is that we're gonna waste this largely negative NAO. It doesn't look like it's gonna quite reach the magnitude of what we had in December, but well, 2 mixed snow events. It's better than 70 degrees if you're a winter weather lover. But to tell you the truth, once it hits 70, I'm kind of done with winter. So, and the other reason that this storm, the 3rd and the 4th, really matters is everybody's heading out of town with travel arrangements and spring break. So
Pull that down to so that the 14 days is visible. Notice the correlation with observations of the 14-day is only about 0.5.
Yeah. Did I go far enough?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So what was interesting is what seemed most uncertain with the models and the extended is the extent of Arctic air. The Arctic oscillation just essentially implodes and diverges substantially. But so we do have a chance here for the next week or two for something volatile to happen. One thing that's really interesting late this week is there does appear to be more instability involved. And of course, March storms, instability, that's one of the reasons why March storms can rage. It's like, stacking the deck. I was thinking of an analogy this morning. If your kid is gonna have a meltdown, over sugar them, make them tired, and then take them on a plane ride and then see what happens. The meltdown's gonna happen. You just don't know when and where exactly. And it seems like the weather pattern the indices are sort of doing the same thing right now. There's high volatility, and we've already seen that with the temperature swings. But I don't know that a sleet storm is going to be very exciting for us at this point. Any other questions?
Does it look like the PNA could go positive at any point? I know it's been negative for a while, but even though we've had the negative NAO,
Yeah.
right now, it doesn't look like it really do much without the southeast ridge.
I was looking at that, and I was not encouraged by what I saw here. Just
Trough just keeps reappearing.
the trough keeps reappearing. This ridge out here is so strong that everything's coming down and intensifying into the northwest. So you're just getting it recur, like you said. I think this is more climatology towards the end of this period, maybe wishful thinking, but look at the height anomaly. I would say that still favors the PNA staying negative, unfortunately. But doesn't mean you can't have a storm that maybe overperforms, but we're just not able to take full advantage of the cold air that we have. So
It's almost like the Pacific, if it's not in line. It's
Yeah.
just not gonna cooperate over here.
Yeah, I agree. So that's all I have, but I'm happy to answer more questions or chat more. And if you find a signal in the spaghetti, let me know. I'll pass it back to the office. I got nothing.
Well, the core of the cold is not near North America. I mean,
Yeah.
the magenta spaghetti shows no inclination to be on this side of the pole.
True. Very true. How many of us in here are snow lovers?
Oh, for sure.
Okay. I'm sorry. I share your pain.
Yeah. Anyone have anything else? Okay, thank you, Greg.
Thanks. Went quicker than I thought it would.
No,